talking about, drop shipping and finding a product, and starting a business. Really, a lot of people, kind of are curious of, what business cards that they might want to end up getting. I know, again, you're very well versed in that, and maybe you wanted to kind of inform them what the best decision or best options may be.
Yeah, for sure. So I kind of want to preface this, business credit card talk and what the best credit cards for business are and for different categories and things like that. I want to preface the conversation by saying, like, when I was in your shoes looking into credit, I saw it as an opportunity, right? A lot of families, a lot of people, they don't see it as an opportunity because honestly, a majority of people can't handle credit cards properly, whether it's business or personal. They see it as an opportunity to use money that maybe they don't have to maybe start a business or to buy a TV that they can't really afford. And so I first want to preface the whole credit card conversation by first just making sure that you're never spending money on a credit card that you don't have in the bank. I think that's a very, very important thing. Even if it's a very, very well calculated business move that you think is going to succeed. I don't want any of you guys to spend money that you don't have, right? So that's the first thing I just want to kind of clear the air on, because in business, for people that have succeeded and have used credit positively, a lot of times they're going to tell you, get as much credit as you can. Try to get the lowest interest rates. Maximize the amount of money that's available to you in the event that you need it. And I agree with the majority of those things, but the fact of the matter is a majority of people that do get into business probably isn't what you want to hear, but they don't succeed. And they definitely don't succeed on the first one. And so don't take a credit card, put $5,000 on it to start your business if you don't have it in the bank, right? So I just want to preface it with that. That being said, leveraging credit is such an important skill in life that people don't realize. They think, oh, well, I'll worry about a credit when I'm getting a mortgage on my house or when I'm going to be financing or leasing my first car, because that's really the only opportunity, or the only moments that you genuinely need your credit, right? Well, no, that's wrong. You need your credit in so many different ways, and you can leverage it in more ways than most people talk about, or I guess are comfortable talking about, because a lot of people don't understand the credit game to the extent that a lot of business owners do. And so to make a long story short, when you get into, first of all, when you start building your credit, you want to start with a couple of very small credit cards, low interest, safe things. You don't have to have these fancy rewards and bonuses, but you have to start spending, because to build your credit score personally, which kind of trickles into your business credit score, they're two totally separate things. But when you don't have a lot of business history, they kind of look back on your personal credit and your personal income as a deciding factor of how much money to kind of give you to be available. And so you want to make sure that you start building credit as quickly as you can, but also as safely as you can. So you can use things that are called secured credit cards, which are almost like debit cards. You actually preload the balance, and then you can spend that money. So you can get a secured credit card almost anywhere at any age, regardless of whether you have any existing credit or loans or all of these things. But start off by getting a couple of these credit cards, use it for a couple of months, for a year, for 2 years, and then that will put you in a position to when you start making a little bit of money, now you can apply for these bigger business credit cards. Now, the way that you can not game the system, because the whole world that we're in right now, a lot of people can argue it is a game, right? And you're either going to be among the winning players of the team or the losing players. And so a lot of people look at credit as this really bad thing that puts a lot of families in debt and this and that. And that's true, because they didn't know how to manage that properly. But if you do know how to manage it properly and kind of bring it on your side, then credit can be a very, very beautiful thing. And so if you're getting into business, if you have your credit score established, let's say you've waited it out a couple of months, and another kind of pro tip I'll throw in there, because a lot of you might be a little bit younger and you're looking to build your credit, or you might be in your 20s and your credit score is fucked, and you're like, how can I quickly turn this around and get it to a point where I can even get approved for a business credit card? Yeah. And there's something that's called an authorized user. And what an authorized user is essentially saying, if you have a mom or a dad or an uncle or an aunt or a sister who has a really good credit card that's 10 years old and they have a good credit score, they can add you as an authorized user to that card, and you can reap the benefits that they've reaped from that card and all of their hard work, literally within a couple of months of being added to that card. They use it a couple of times, and you now get that history. So if that's a 10-year-old credit card, you can be 9. And if your name is added to that account, you now have 10 extra years of history added to your credit. So if you have parents that have this and that don't know about this trick, because they're not like the top 1, 5, 10% of business owners that know how to leverage credit, ask them to add you as an authorized user, and you're going to get that credit boost, and that might accelerate the process in which you can even be eligible to get a business credit card. All right. Now, all the prerequisites aside, to just build your credit card and your credit score and be in a position to where you can apply, Now, fast forward, you're in a position to where your business maybe is making a little bit of money, and now you want a credit card because you want to get these points. You want to travel the world for free. You want to get this cash back, and you want to make sure that you're getting a little bit more out of each dollar that you spend. So for me personally, I'll talk about a couple of business credit cards, but rather like the companies that have multiple credit cards underneath them. So the first one I have to talk about is American Express.
Definitely.
They're probably one of the best personal and business credit cards because they offer some of the highest rewards because they have really good partnerships, right? So when you look at rewards programs and companies, typically the ones that have the most funding, the most funding, the ones that can give you the best bonuses, sign-up bonuses, all these things are the ones that have established the best partnerships with companies like airlines, like food restaurants, like big companies like Nike, Adidas, Apple, right? All these big companies, it's because they create partnerships because they make money off of all the little transaction fees and off these partnerships. So you want to go after cards that are going to give you generous limits, that are going to have really, really good customer support. I've used Capital One cards, American Express cards, Chase cards. Nothing beats American Express customer service. But again, to not go on and on, to make a long story short, with American Express specifically, they have the gold card for business and they have the platinum card. I have both. I don't recommend both to everyone. You shouldn't get the platinum card because it's like $600 a year. Some of them have annual fees. You shouldn't get that one unless you actively travel and you use some of that travel for business, or at least you can tell your accountant that you use some of it for business, however you choose to do that.
Exactly.
And then with the business gold card, that is better for actual business expenses, for things like ad spend. So on your first $150,000 in spend per year, you get 4 points per dollar, which is equivalent to 600,000 points, which can be redeemed for upwards of $12,000 worth of travel. And so you guys might be listening saying, whoa, $150,000 is a lot. But that's all relative to the stage in your business's growth, right? So after 2 years, $150,000, you might be spending that every single month. You don't know. And so you might get an extra $12,000 in redeemable travel value just from your normal business expenses by putting it on a credit card instead of a debit card. So that's the concept to understand. But again, you don't want to spend $150,000 you don't have. That has to be in the bank. You have to be able to pay that card off every single day. Like the day after you make the purchase, you should pay it off. Or at least a couple days later. You shouldn't use it as a way to finance something because interest rates, all these things can totally screw you if you miss payments or if you can't afford to make them. So American Express, great company, a lot of good cards. The gold and the platinum are definitely two to keep your eye on. And then Chase has they have the reserve card. So it's like Chase, I think it's unlimited, and then Chase Business Preferred. So they're two different cards, kind of within the same ecosystem. A lot of these companies, same thing with Capital One, one of my first business cards that I love to this day. They kind of all have cash back and travel rewards. And so both Capital One and Chase, those are probably the only two companies besides American Express that you have to look into, right? If you want a good trifecta, get one card from each of those companies. I don't want to explain too much about the complexities of like the rules and regulations, but get a Chase card first, then look into something like Capital One, because American Express usually requires a higher credit score, more income to actually earn. So that would be probably the third credit card that I'd personally apply for. Didn't happen to be the order that I personally got it, but there's a lot of mistakes that I made that I don't want you making. So just trust me on this advice. You can do more research independently. Get Chase first, then maybe one of those Capital One cards. There's a card called Spark Cards with them that I love for business. And then get your American Express cards. And so all the other cards that I talked about that aren't American Express, they just might not have good of points, or they might not have as good of rewards programs, but they're still great. And when you hit those caps on the American Express cards, or when you want to categorize businesses, for example, I have multiple businesses, so I might want to organize those by different cards. And if I don't want to, if I want to have all those businesses under one main company instead of splitting them up, then I can only use one business name for the cards, and so I can only have one card for that business. You can get something called employee cards when you have business cards. This kid has seen some of mine. I've gotten some under his name because with Facebook, with marketing, sometimes you want to organize your expenses. Other times you need it because some of those cards have gotten flagged by something like Facebook. But again, to just wrap this all up here, do a lot more due diligence and research on credit, on business credit in general, and make sure that you're using it on your side. Make sure that you understand the risks of it. And for the people that tell you not to use credit at all whatsoever, look at what they've done, right? They probably haven't built businesses. They probably haven't leveraged credit to their advantage. And they probably have only looked at it from the lens of scarcity, right? Like, oh, I've only had to use credit cards when I absolutely needed it or when I didn't have a lot of money. You don't want to look at it that way, right? Do not touch a credit card if you are in debt. But if you're out of debt, if you're positive, if you're in the green, that's when you really want to start building your credit. Only spend money on those cards that you have in your bank account. I can't stress that enough. And make sure that you leverage it to your advantage, because too many people don't take advantage of it. And the last thing that I'll leave you guys with is don't let it persuade you to buy things that you wouldn't have otherwise bought. I think that's another important thing to understand, is that a lot of times credit cards will give you sign-up bonuses. They'll give you bonuses on points for certain categories that if you're already spending in those categories like advertising, that's great. If you're not, and you're just getting this $1,000 in cash back if you spend $10,000 in the first 3 months, don't go and buy a $5,000 couch and a $5,000 computer if you don't need it. Just hit that sign-up bonus, right? That's where people have negative associations with credit cards, because the system is designed to screw you over. It's to incentivize you to buy things that you don't need. As long as you are a person that doesn't let the system control what you do, and you are a free thinker, you think for yourselves, and you make decisions that are calculated and that are well thought out and aren't from some flashy sign-up bonuses or some rewards programs, then you are going to be very, very successful in, this game of life, and especially in the game of credit, especially if you're building a business where you have a lot of expenses. So I'll leave it at that.
Let's go. The quicker you learn that, the better. It's too true. And yeah, for those of you who may comment, oh, why is this one not speaking? Listen, I wanted to allow him to provide some value to you guys.
There's things he's better at. There's some things I'm a little bit more knowledgeable about.
Right. And I want to let him speak as much as he wants, as he pleases. So that was awesome. I hope any of you, have taken at least one word of what either of us have said and kind of apply it to your own daily life, like I mentioned before.
Yo, you got an at?